Hello everyone, this is Ryan from the ProfitTrailer team, also known as RF Radio on the ProfitTrailer Discord support server as well as elsewhere on the internet. On this video I'm going to be going over two buy and sell strategies, the simplest of the buying and selling strategies, namely the loss and gain. So we're going to start with loss strategy, and in order to find out what the loss strategy is all about, we're going to go on over to the Wiki, just at this link down below in the bottom of your monitoring window. So you click on Wiki, you come to the welcome page here, and we scroll down until we hit the trading section on the left hand side. You click buy and sell strategies. So here we have our familiar buy and sell strategies matrix, and you'll notice there are on the third and fourth lines down, you have gain and loss strategies. We're going to cover loss first, because this was actually going to be a buying strategy. And you'll notice on this matrix that the loss is strictly a buying strategy. It cannot sell. So if we go ahead and click the loss link, we could jump down to the article and learn a little bit more about it. So it says here the buy strategy is true when the price of the coin has dropped by the set percentage in the last 24 hours. So this does move along with the clock. This is in the candles on a chart. If you were to chart your particular coin that you're going to be evaluating for using the loss strategy, this does not just take the percent change over the current trading day. All right, I know there are some charts and exchanges that only express their the loss on a particular coin or gain in terms of the current trading day rather than the prior 24 hours, and that can make this a little tricky to evaluate on anything less than charting it. So I noticed, like, if you go and look at say the Bittrex client or Binance exchange, and you may notice their percent change is only showing on the current day. So that would be an example of not being able to use that value in order to convert to a viable loss strategy, or it would be able to be done. I mean, you could use that value, but it may not be accurate for what you're trying to achieve. So we have here, let's just go through the description real quick. The numbers. The valid values for your buy value is either a positive or negative decimal value. Now, if you use a positive buy value, it's going to convert to a negative, but the buy value limit must be negative for this. It will not automatically convert it. So just for simplicity's sake, it's recommended to use negative values for both the buy value and the buy value limit. So you notice in the examples given here, if you use a positive, it's still going to convert that to a 3% loss, as you would the negative 3. Here it will do the same thing. And as well, here negative 7.5 equals the 7.5% loss over 24 hours. So whatever number you put there is going to be your percent loss over 24 hours. Just remember, type this in terms of a percentage. Don't use the decimal to represent a percentage. Like, if, for example, if you want to use 10% loss over 24 hours, don't put in 0.1, because that'll translate to 0.1% loss over 24 hours. So just a note there. Here's the value for it, or the formula for calculating the buy value. If you so choose to use the formula and want to work it out for yourself, this is how you would do it here. Again, there's some more examples here, just like up in the numbers paragraph, so I'm not going to go into this right here. You can read that on your own if you wish. But how are we going to set this up? If we go back to our bot, I'm going to go over to the config in pairs and show you right here in the default buy settings. Now I have on my default A buy strategy here, loss set at a 5% over the last 24 hours. So 5% loss in the last 24 hours, and the bot is going to attempt to find a buying point. So it's got to be at or below that loss point. By below, I mean it's got to go more negative, not a lower number. So if you have -3, that's more positive than -5, it's not going to buy there. So in this case here, if I'm using a -5 buy value, means the coin has to drop at least 5% in the last 24 hours, and if I have a buy value limit set above that, it's not going to work. So if you do choose to use buy value limit, it's got to be below the buy value on this, because it's just like if you're using low BB, it's looking for the lowest point possible. So if you do choose to use a buy value limit, just remember it will negate your strategy if you try and set it above the buy value. So don't do that. You know, some people probably might look at this and go, why would you want to use a buy value limit if it's looking for the lowest possible point? Well, if you're looking to buy in a specific range and you don't want to buy the coin if it suddenly starts dumping, and it exceeds your buy value by a considerable amount. So if it goes way below where your buy value is, and you might not want to buy it when it's on that descending line, because a lot of times when a coin is descending in price, there are little pullbacks to come back up a little bit. It's part of the Elliott wave theory, where you have a descending surge and then a pull back up, and then another descending surge and a pull back up. It would be what's called an ABC correction. It is highly possible, if your trailing buy is set too short, that you could buy into one of those pullbacks, and then it dumps even further, and now you're set with a very negative position at that point. So that's why one reason you might want to set a buy value limit is to prevent that kind of thing from happening. There are many other use cases, like targeting specific buying zones and then using other strategies as confirmation, or vice versa. You could be using loss as a confirmation of another strategy. So it all depends on how you want to use this, and that's where buy value limit can come in handy to help you tailor that zone that you're looking to buy in. As you may notice here, I do have it coupled with another buy strategy here, and in this case, I'm using stochastic RSI just as a way to give it a little more refinement, in finding that particular buying range. I want it to buy in a very specific range if I'm, using something like this. Again, your default trailing buy, this does work for loss, as it does for all other strategies now. So you set your trailing buy accordingly based on where you want it to buy after it hits that bottom, comes back up a little bit. This is set exactly the same way in DCA as it would be here. If we were to go over to DCA, we take a look here. I've got my loss set up, a default A buy value, the same as what I have in pairs. However, I have disabled my buy value limit, so in this case, I don't care if it goes and drops way down and maybe pulls back, because I have triggers set here first. The idea behind using the triggers in the DCA with the loss strategy, I can basically control it by the triggers instead of just by the buy value. So it adds an extra layer of complexity, but also a little bit more of control where you want to buy. So you can set that accordingly if you like. Now, I probably wouldn't stick with just this -5. I might just go down to -10. So basically, I need the bot to have a -10% loss before it goes and activates the buy strategy. And then after hitting the trigger and then the buy strategy, and then it factors in trailing buy. So yeah, there's a lot more complicated setup, or a lot more complicated strategy to take into account when you're using DCA, so just bear that in mind. So now that we've understood how we would set this in our pairs and our DCA, let's go take a look over here on a chart to see how we can evaluate this. Now here I have the Tron priced in Bitcoin on Binance using 1-hour candles. Now say you wanted to target a particularly low buying point for buying with the loss strategy. One way you could evaluate a good average buy value to set for loss would be, say you wanted to buy at this real extreme dip at this candle. Somewhere in this candle you wanted to buy. So I take that date and time, and I walk it back 24 hours. So I go back to the 22nd at 1 p.m. from where we started there at the bottom. Now I take the measure tool right here, and we go back here, and I find the open of this candle, just for just being conservative here. Take the open of this candle and find out what the close level was, what the difference between those two candles would be. And we see it's about -7.3%, so it's a 7.3% loss from the prior 24 hours. Now, if we follow that down to the bottom, we see it bottom somewhere around 8.43% down. And, this gives us a bit of a window that we could aim for. Say roughly 7.5%. That could be one possible buy value for the loss strategy. Or you could even look at the open of the candle if you wanted to. It all depends on how you like to find your buy point in these in each of these candles. But if you wanted to get some kind of confirmation as an average, we could take another dip point like the one right here before it pulled up a little bit and then went back down, and say we take that date that was again on the 23rd of May at 5 a.m. Let's walk back 24 hours. 22nd at 5 a.m. And again, we're going to take it from the open. And we're going to see here at the close of this one what that was. Okay, so about a 6.5% loss, roughly. And then the absolute bottom was close to 8%. It was almost right on 8% there, 7.96% down, roughly. So we're looking at a range between 6.5% and 8% as our possible average. And you can confirm this over multiple dips like this if you want, just to get a good average for that coin. Now, note that I'm only looking at this in terms of one coin right here. The interesting thing about using the loss strategy is that it can be very, very personalized to the coin, just like using BB width. It may be very coin specific, because a lot of coins are not going to exhibit the same losses over the same period of time necessarily. So using this in a blanket strategy for sifting through all coins on an exchange might not be the best strategy. You could do it if you want, but I would highly recommend, just taking a look at the individual coins to see if there is something about them or something different that you could look at, and maybe set them up on a coin specific strategy. So just keep that in mind. Let's go take a look now at the gain selling strategy, because I think this is about all we have for the loss buying strategy. So if we go back over to our pairs config here, I've got gain set up here. Before we get into the setup, actually, let's go back over here to the wiki. And let's go back up to the very top, and we see here gain. Let's click that and go down to, oh, it was right above the loss article. Look at that. So we have now, looking at the gain strategy here, this is the only one that is actually mandatory out of all of the sell strategies. Now this is because this is the only way to actually declare what your minimum profit level you're targeting is. So if you're using other strategies, you have to use gain, but if you're using gain, it can be used by itself. There is no requirement to use gain in conjunction with other strategies unless you are using other strategies. So this one can be used on its own. This is a lot like the loss strategy in that the buy value is, the sell value is a percentage, not a specific value. It's not a discrete value. It is actually a percentage. So if you set a 1 there, that means you're aiming for a 1% profit as your minimum level. If you put 5 for your sell value, you're aiming for a 5% minimum gain for selling. So just remember, this is a hard limit. It is the minimum profit level you're willing to accept on a trade. Now, there is a neat little feature about this that was not in version 1. Gain can now be used to sell coins at a loss if you want. So if you set a negative value for your gain, it will sell your coins at a loss. Now, this can be useful if, say, you have too much into a specific coin and it has really gone down. It is completely tanked and it can't quite get back up into profit, and you've followed it for weeks and you're tired of hanging on to it. And maybe it'll come back up to like a -3 or a -5%, but it just doesn't quite get back to in profit, or at least even from where you bought it. That's where this negative sell value could come in handy if you wanted to take a minor loss on it and not use a stop loss when it's really low, or a panic sell when it's really low. So this could be a way of allowing it to sell at a negative sell point. So here is a few more examples down here if you wanted to go through this. I'm not going to go through this because we've got some other ones right here in the numbers section. So these are some examples of how it's going to actually function. Let's go take a look back here on the pairs config. If we go back over to config, pairs, yes, we want to leave this page. And we see here in the default buy settings, actually, sorry, the default sell setting, since we're looking at gain. We see here I've got mine set for a value of 3. There is no limit under sells, so all you have is your sell strategy. Sell value. It is extremely simple to set up, and this is the very easiest one of them all. You just pick a profit level. What are you willing to accept as your minimum profit? You can calculate it out using some formula that you may have if you wish, but a lot of times you may just say, what's an acceptable level, get a good feel for it, and go, yeah, okay, I'll pick 1, 2, 3%, whatever. Just bear in mind that the trailing profit will work with gain if you have it activated. And the same goes for DCA. These will be set pretty well exactly the same way. If you want to use a different sell value for your DCA, you can. It does not have to be exactly the same as your pairs. I just have mine done this way for simplicity's sake. Also, I claim absolutely no responsibility in using this strategy that you see here for buy or sell. These are strictly examples, so if you're looking to copy this, please do so at your own risk. Okay, this strategy has not yet been tested by me for any kind of, certification and saying, hey, this actually works well. Just bear that in mind. If you're going to copy this, you're doing so at your own risk. So now we go back over to, oh, I missed that one, over here. Let's go back to TradingView here, and the easiest way, if you wanted to take a look at potential gains to see where you might want to pick it, instead of just throwing out a number out there, maybe you want to evaluate the chart to see where might be a good area to take profit, or in this case where you want it to sell at. So say we were looking at this bottom candle here, and say we ended up buying somewhere up in the body of it here, right? And we follow that up and see where some good levels are. If we were to sell near this peak candle here, somewhere within the body of it, wow, we're looking at around 4.25% right there. So that's actually a pretty decent gain in my book, and that's only on 3 hours in this case. If you had bought in at that lower point, you could have possibly realized this gain. Also, if you look at the peak, which is not necessarily a point you're going to sell at, you're going to hit that peak and then it's going to trail back. So what my peak is here is what, 5.22%. If my trailing sell is 0.5, it's going to pull back down 0.5%. So I'm looking at a potentially, a potential maximum profit of around 4.7% if it was to sell at that point. Now, this is assuming that all of your this is assuming perfect trading, and it's actually going to sell on your first try and all that kind of stuff. Again, if you wanted to go for a longer strategy, if you were to buy somewhere in that candle again, looking up higher candle values here later in the cycle, you see that it's got 7.44% there, and get to this rise. By this point, it's over 8%, almost 9%. So it gets pretty high off of this, and if this was less than 1 day, it could have had possibly an 8 to 9% profit off of this coin. So this is one way to evaluate your own potential gains. Where should I set my gain value, my sell value at? This is just one way to do it. There may be any number of ways. I've seen people mathematically calculating it to give them a good average point for which to sell pretty well all of their coins. So that's about all I have for gain and loss. If you like what you see on this video, go ahead and hit that like button down below. Please consider subscribing to the channel, and if you want to get alerts of when we post new videos or add new content, go ahead and hit that bell icon that's right next to the subscribe button. As always, stay safe, happy trading, and we will see you on the next video. If you need any help with your ProfitTrailer client, please consult the wiki at wiki.profittrailer.com, and if you still have more questions, don't hesitate to join us over on the Discord support server following the link on your screen.